know we're doing our picks in a few moments. I am ready to say that the Green Bay Packers will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. All right? I was a year. Did I pick them last? I was a year early.
Yeah, but you
I was a year early.
But
I got them going to the Super Bowl because here's the deal. And I had them winning the division before the trade, but I think I said yesterday I was leaning toward picking Detroit.
Yep.
Their defense, if you looked at the Packers and you thought of a weakness outside of maybe questions if you have them about Jordan Love, but their defense, it was, okay, the cornerbacks, the pass rush
It was
really
pass
there.
defense was the concern because of the corners and the lack of a star pass rusher. Yep.
Now, Micah solves both of them to me because obviously you got a great pass rusher. Rashawn Gary is good.
Good.
And he's been getting double teamed all these years. Now, he's not going to be the one getting double teamed. It's going to be Micah. So you pencil in Micah's 12 sacks. Then Rashawn Gary's might go up to double digits. And then the cornerbacks don't have to cover as long because we got a great pass rush. So the defense was 6th last year in scoring defense. All right, top 5 overall defense. So I think they're going to have a top 8-ish defense, if not much better. I mean, I mentioned the EPA before, just the gap. Green Bay was 4th in defensive EPA. So that now you add, I'm just saying.
Josh, you
for the
got to take a day off.
analytics.
Josh, you got to stop. We did the show well for 4 years.
Hold on.
Never talking about it.
Josh, we did it for 4 years.
Josh
and
is
here's the problem.
Nick uses it when it supports his argument. You use something, DVOA or whatever it is. You throw stuff out.
I never once used it.
But you're going.
And because here's
hard
the thing is,
I'm
it's like
just
you're like
saying.
adjusted or not adjusted.
Well, look, I'm here for the streets, and I'm here for the analytics geeks. So all you guys, I'm hitting all cylinders. But the defense, I think, is going to be much improved.
Okay,
it already was good.
Okay,
all right.
good.
So can I?
And the offense, I think Matthew Golden's going to be a #1 receiver. J-Lo, bounce back year, big year. Yes,
okay,
I got them.
I respect the take. This is just such a huge bet on Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Because listen, what the Packers had, in my opinion, was a bunch of good players.
Yes.
And
I agree.
I'm not certain, aside from their safety, they had any definitively great players. Now they do in Micah. But you do this because you believe your quarterback is ready this very moment. And you might say, I understand the initial reaction is, well, Micah's 26. Like, it's, you're going to have him for a long runway, and you are. This trade, it will be at its best immediately for them and be more costly as the time goes on. So if we can throw up the Barnwell article, I think it is noteworthy because with the cost of those picks, not having the first-round picks, added on top of his deal, Parsons will cost the Packers more than $65 million per season over the next 4 years. 4-time Pro Bowler will make more, at least implicitly, than any other player in the game, his old teammate Dak Prescott included, and twice as much as Bosa, who was the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL a few months ago. On top of that, Brew,
and you know why it's saying that to 60? Because I don't know if people are going to understand.
Oh, it's because you don't have the
draft pick that you gave up.
The draft pick, the 2 draft picks.
But I got Micah Parsons.
No, I understand.
I just think that's a little funny.
No,
I'm not the analytics guy that Barnwell is, but
you're dropping EPA left and right. Listen. The draft pick certainly doesn't matter for this year because you literally wouldn't have it this year. It likely doesn't matter for next year because that's only 1 pick and they would be a rookie. Where this trade, if it ever feels not great for Packer fans, it's in 4 years, right? It's when those guys that you would have been drafting would be entering their prime, they'd be cheap.
And so, and remember, they're the youngest team in the league.
That does make sense.
But the point I'm making is, you don't do this if you don't think you can win this moment.
Yeah, we know that. Well, obviously we know the Packers believe they can win this moment because they actually believe in Jordan Love. Just because you don't believe in Jordan Love doesn't mean that they don't believe in Jordan Love. That's why they gave him a huge contract. So we're just kind of talking in circles here, and I'll have none of it. This is a great day for the Green Bay Packers, a great move for the Green Bay Packers, and really, 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 really wildly exciting. Now, to be fair, I understand the conversation around the draft picks. This is always the risk when you trade for a player that you then have to pay a ton of money, because you're not only now removing those draft picks that you now would normally use to be able to get players on a significantly cheaper level, but now you're now also immediately paying for a player. So it's not an equal trade, which is why Barnwell is saying $65 million. And that there is a lot of truth to those statements, right? It's like if you were to trade for a huge quarterback right now, let's just say Josh Allen, okay? And you were going to have to pay him $60 million a year and give up 4 first-round draft picks. Like, you can make the argument, even though Josh Allen or Mahomes, whatever quarterback you want to use, man, I don't even care. Tom Brady, like, doesn't matter. You could make the argument, don't know how good of a trade that is because you have to now pay so much money, and now you are giving 4 draft picks that if trust in your ability to draft players, that, like, those picks really do matter because you're gonna be strapped for cash, and you need to be able to use the draft picks to be able to get by and to navigate that, and to also now grow and develop players. So, like, I get the argument against it, and that was the argument that when the Rams were making all those moves that they made, when they went out and got Stafford and OBJ and Von Miller and all of that it was very much like, you have to win now, today, to make this all work, or you absolutely positively have to nail your other draft picks just out of the park, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round picks, which is all fair game. The Rams never truly suffered those consequences of giving up all those first picks. I forget exactly what it was, but they had like years where they didn't have any top picks, like years and years and years, and yet they were still competitive because of the team that they built and their ability to draft in the later rounds and to still make other smart strategic moves and signings in free agency and whatnot. So to me, it all depends on how much do you trust your team to be well run, right? If you're taking a big swing, but you're not a well-run team, then there's those issues. Then you have the issues. But if you are a well-run team taking a swing like this, it's not the same as if the Panthers did it, the Jaguars did it, right? Like if these other teams did it, because you're like, well, these teams were fundamentally not well-run. And it seems like whenever they landed a successful draft pick, it was just kind of lucky, and they're not really finding those great picks in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and they're not finding those value free agents that they can really make moves. Like, again, we'll use the Eagles as an example, finding the Mekhi Bectons, finding the Zach Bonds, right? Those picks, those moves, those decisions, not picks, but the free agency moves that not everyone was clamoring to go out and get. So you have to trust your organization that if you're going to take a big swing like this, it's all good. But on the same side, you could say, well, if you trust your organization, then you'll be able to draft great players, and you want those first round picks. But it's just one of those things where you're kind of just redistributing the weight, right, of the moves that you're going to be making, and you now are stacking that weight more to the immediate moment than the latter moment, which is what the Rams did, to be fair, and they won. And then it took them a couple years, and unfortunately they dealt with injuries, and you could have made the argument that they could have been more competitive for a little bit longer of that peak. But then through their ability to draft in the later rounds and make moves, they're back now to being a great team. Their biggest weakness is their aging quarterback, which is just, that's just the way it works sometimes. And so once they lock their quarterback of the future, they'll be back to being, whatever they need to be in any given moment. And that's the luxury that the Packers have right now, where their quarterback is really young. So you're not really mortgaging or even leveraging the future necessarily in a way where you're just kind of like, we're in trouble. Because football, if there's one thing that we can learn, that if you're a well-run franchise, I mean, like, you got a year or two tops of you maybe not being as competitive as you would have liked to be, right? But within 2 years, if you're a well-run team and you got the quarterback, you got the coaching staff there, I mean, all it does is take a couple drafts and a couple smart moves in free agencies and maybe a trade here or there, and you're back to being, to as high of a contender as one could hope for, outside of really just building like really having just monster, which is rare in the NFL to begin with, right? So you can't just expect, I always say, if you want any more, then at that point you're just kind of being greedy. And that's why even with this question right here, to kind of answer it straight up, ready to say Packers are the best team in the NFC, I'm not, because I'm not really prepared to say any team is necessarily the best team or that. Because I don't really know what that means in 2025 right now. I really don't. And I think that it's fair to say that the Packers are bona fide, 1,000% undeniable, no ifs, ands, or buts, true contenders. And I think, like, I made the argument here when I was going through Colin's, like, top 10 hierarchy. And I said, listen, if we're going to be talking about the Bills, the Ravens, the Eagles, he had those as the top 3 teams. And he had the Chiefs outside of that at like 5th or something. And I said, listen, if we're going to say that those 3 teams are the top 3 teams, I was like, the way how I look at it is that I put them in tiers, in groups, and so I'm willing to now still keep the Chiefs in there and say this, this is the top 4 teams, right? This is the top teams in the NFL in no particular order, because we've seen all these teams play each other in the playoffs, and it's just like, have at it, man. Let's see what happens. And to me, I think it's fair to say that you could put the Packers in that tier, but I think it's also fair to say we haven't seen this team play together. We haven't seen them be healthy, that they still have to prove to us that. And they do lack the experience that the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Eagles have of this continued playoff success or continued, pretty big playoff performances. Ravens, you can make the argument, are kind of teetering that, which is, fine. That the Packers don't necessarily have that quite yet, which I think is fair, right? Obviously, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. The Bills, obviously, Josh Allen is just an absolute monster, and they were just in the AFC Championship last year. And the year before that, the Ravens were in the AFC Championship, and they just both keep losing to each other. So it's just like the Packers have to just kind of reintegrate into that conversation before you can start to say they are bona fide the best team in the NFC. But to be fair, it's like I'd make that argument about many teams who just made a big swing like that. And listen, I believed in the Eagles last year and believed that they were Super Bowl contenders, and they obviously won the Super Bowl. And I wasn't ready to say that they were the best team in the NFL, just like I'm not ready to say that they're the best team in the NFL this year, because I'm never really comfortable using the past as too strong of a predictor. But as you guys know, I had been incredibly high on the Packers and was frustrated how last year unfolded, and still believed in them this year and was excited. And I was also going to be like, I do believe the Lions are going to take a step back, and I think the Vikings can take a step back, and I think the Bears are going to take a step forward, but I also think the Packers are going to take a step forward. Like, that was kind of like my whole argument. And I was just like, all right, to me, it's going to come down to, can Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams solidify themselves? Can they say, no, guys, we're the best coach quarterback duo in this NFC North? And it's like, and I was like, well, it's really up to the Packers to be like, no. Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, we have the continuity. Jordan Love's got is the greatness. Don't sleep on him just because there was some injury issues last year. We are the best coach quarterback duo. And if they prove to be truly a top coach quarterback duo in the NFL, and you have the roster and you add in a Micah Parsons, well then, yeah, man, it's beast mode. It's box office. It's let's get after it. But the thing that they lack is the playoff experience, is those crucial key moments when you're in the fourth quarter, in the in the NFC Championship game. Like, those things do matter. It matters for the Chiefs, it matters for the Eagles, matters for the Bills, the Ravens, the Patriots. It's mattered for every team, and we haven't necessarily seen that from the Packers quite yet. And they did get some, it's tough. They got some good and some bad playoff experience, because they smoked the Dallas Cowboys with Jordan Love, but that game was such them steamrolling that I don't know how much there is to learn from that experience in hindsight, just because you absolutely annihilated them. And then you had the game against the 49ers, but you didn't come out on top. And that's its own learning experience and incredibly important. And that was my argument going into the following season, where I was like, listen, you smoked one team, and then you had a tough loss on the road, which is important. Like, Jordan Love has to fail in the playoffs and be like, okay, that's what this is like now. And I'm a firm believer in that. But then you just couldn't really, there was nothing to gain the following year in 24, because it just ended up being a quite messy season. And so now you're kind of a little bit, there was no momentum to build off of that. So I'm excited to see what it looks like, though, honestly. I really am. But you would still say that it's just like a team like this needs to show that they can step up and play the biggest in the biggest moments, right? Whether at home, NFC Championship game, on the road, divisional round, whatever it may be, going up against these teams when it truly matters most. Like that's the box that a team like the Packers needs to check off, because we technically have not necessarily seen it. The closest you get to that is against the Dallas Cowboys, and I don't take the Dallas Cowboys seriously. I mean, I really don't. And listen, that Packers Cowboys game was one of the most exciting games that I've ever seen in my entire life, and I really mean that. And I don't say that lightly. That was one of the most fun, most entertaining games I've ever watched. But in the grand scheme of things, it'll for the players that really matter, like Jordan Love here and Matt LaFleur obviously being the play caller, it's in terms of what you learn and how you grow, how you evolve, how you maximize your own potential. A game like that, there's probably way more to learn from a game of them losing against the 49ers in that in that next round than blowing out the Dallas Cowboys, just because of the growth and development that you can have. And unfortunately, because of just how of a mess things were, I don't think there was much growth and development in that loss against the Philadelphia Eagles. You can make the argument that Jordan Love understood a little bit more, that he needs to learn how to manage games a little bit, be more smart with the ball in these close games on the road against a great team like the Eagles, right? Like not having to not be so aggressive in moments that need not be, especially when you're already dealing with injuries and turnovers early in the game. So like there's some growth and development there, but like I said, it was just such a mess of a year that a part of me just feels that they're just like, nah, let's just throw last year out and we're starting anew here. And that's why you go out and get a first round wide receiver. That's why you go out and get a Micah, right? Like they're not like, hey, we learned our lessons, now we're moving forward. They're like, no. We have to kind of hit like a mild reset button here. And I think that the moves that they've made, considering how aggressive they've been, would kind of prove that, kind of highlights what I'm saying here. So either way, it's exciting, and I think the Packers, obviously a massive brand and obviously plenty of momentum behind them going into the season, but I don't think there was that true like, oh yeah, Green Bay Packers, here they are, and now they've obviously immediately jumped to the second best NFC odds, fifth to win the Super Bowl. Honestly, at the end of the day, like that's what I'm trying to say, is like that's all you could ask for right now, right? Anything more than that, you're greedy. If you're like, no, we should be number one in the odds and top two to win Super Bowl, it's like, no, like there's still some there's still some road that needs to be proven, which again I think is totally fair. And as someone who believes in the Packers, it's like I think that's fair. So I think it's exciting, and I'm happy that the Packers are making this moves. But it is funny just to hear Nick just be like, "Well, what the Packers are saying that they kind of believe in Jordan Love," and it's like, yeah, they believe in their quarterback that they paid a couple $100 million. Like, no way. They believe in the quarterback that they've watched for years and years and years, both on the field, off the field, in actual real NFL games, practices, yeah. I think they have trust and faith in Jordan Love. Just because you don't doesn't mean they don't. So it's always funny to see someone try to process things like this, and it just doesn't quite compute what they see. And it's yeah, man. I'm just excited. I'm excited. Hopefully his thumb. I was reading before that Jordan Love is going to wear a brace on that hand. And again, all that stuff is just inconveniences and just something extra that you have to deal with, which is frustrating when you come off of let's just call it a sloppy season last year because of injuries, because of all the reasons why. It doesn't matter. It could just be concluded as sloppy, slippery, and you just want to get off on the right foot here. Hopefully Micah's back actually is fully healthy, and he really was just kind of being like, yeah, my back, I got back tightness and soreness just because of all the nonsense with Dallas. But he is going to be not necessarily 100% in game shape. He will need to be ramped up to a degree. He's also has to be familiar with Green Bay, what they're looking to do defensively. And like I said, Jordan Love is also going to be, he hasn't been able to practice. Matt LaFleur's words himself, he has not been able to practice in the way that Matt LaFleur wants to be able to do. I made a video about that. So it wouldn't surprise me if this team gets off to a slightly sluggish start or just doesn't truly show us the potential of what they are. But I wouldn't jump to panicking quite yet. But Either way, man, this is a great move, and moves like this are what makes football absolutely positively undefeated. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Green Bay Packers? Are you ready to say that the Packers are the best team in the NFC? And how do you feel about people trying to struggle? Because I've seen this now multiple takes, not just Nick, but I've seen this kind of all over. People are just like, what they're saying is that they can win now. And it's just like, and they're saying it's a big bet on Jordan Love. And it's just like, watching people just cope with that is pretty funny to me. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.